Smith, and you're Maplewood Middle School, and is in the seventh grade. Rebecca has had 2 prior removals from her parents and has lived in foster care and kinship care. On November 12th, 2024, Rebecca's younger sibling received medical treatment where the medical report indicated neglect from the parents. Due to this incident, the Department of Child Services opened an assessment, and during the assessment learned that Jessica and Jeremy had relapsed on methamphetamine, were facing eviction, and had been engaging in domestic violence in the home. Jessica and Jeremy signed a safety plan, which included that they would re-engage in substance treatment, work with local housing authorities to prevent eviction, and begin services for domestic violence. On December 16th, Jessica and Jeremy refused to take a drug screen, and according to the housing authority, they had to vacate their home on December 21st. On December 20th, the court granted an emergency custody order, and Rebecca was detained and placed in a kinship placement where she had been previously placed. Her younger sibling was also detained, but he is in a separate placement. On December 23rd, during the detention hearing, Jessica and Jeremy admitted to chins. On January 15th, a dispositional hearing was held, and Jessica and Jeremy were ordered to contact the case manager and CASA and notify of any changes to address, phone numbers, and individuals living in the home, notify of any arrests or criminal charges, and obey the law, allow the case manager and CASA to visit the child in the home, enroll in programs recommended by the family case manager or other service providers, keep all appointments, sign release of information necessary for family case manager to monitor compliance with this order, maintain suitable, safe, stable housing with adequate bedding, functional utilities, adequate amount of food and food preparation facilities, secure and maintain a legal source of stable income, which may include employment, public assistance, social security, and/or child support payments that are adequate to support all the household members, including the children, complete a parenting assessment and successfully complete all recommendations, complete a substance abuse assessment and successfully complete all recommendations, complete random drug screens within 1 hour of request, and request that any request that is not completed in a timely manner will result in a presumed positive result, complete a psychological evaluation and a domestic violence assessment, and attend all scheduled visitation. So CASA's filed a motion to suspend parenting time and requested a hearing on the matter. Based on Rebecca not wanting to attend the visits with her parents. Rebecca is 13 years old and this is her 3rd removal. So we're going to have a review because we're post-dispo. So DCS will be conducting the review hearing portion, and then we will go into hearing CASA's motion to suspend visitation. Everyone, please be there. Oh, sorry, we didn't all rise. That's
okay. Okay, we are on record at 22C01-2306 JCMOCK. We're going to be conducting a review hearing, and then I want to hear a motion by CASA with regards to Rebecca Smith, which is what brings us all together today. I would like to start with anyone who would know themselves to be a witness. If you would raise your right hand, I'll go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalties for perjury that the testimony you're about to present will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. All right, so who is here on behalf of DCS today?
We have Laura Renfro here.
Okay, and then who is representing Rebecca Smith?
Matt Lodge for the mother.
Okay, and we have her mother here as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then who is here on behalf of CASA?
Courtney Roberts.
Right, is there anyone else here that I haven't, that's relevant to the proceedings today that I haven't identified? Okay. Oh, yeah, what's your name?
Tatum Benito.
All right, thank you.
And then Your Honor, Christine Benitez.
And Christine Benitez is present. Okay, now that we have a record made of everyone present, I'll start with you, Mr. Lees. We want to present evidence on behalf of DCS.
Thank you, Your Honor. Department would call Laura Renfro.
You've already been sworn.
Ms. Renfro, can you state your name
Laura Renfro,
and where are you employed?
the Floyd County Department of Child Services.
What's your job title?
I'm a family case manager and I also do assessments.
And what are some of the duties that you have?
I'm initiating assessments, to see if there will be a case and then also, the permanency work or providing services to the family.
And we're here on a review hearing for a case that you have, correct?
Yes.
What's the parent's name?
The parent's name is, Jessica Smith and Jeremy Smith.
And we're at a review hearing. You did put in a report on that, correct?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I just asked for the judicial notice of that report.
So noted.
Can you give a brief review of what was in there?
Okay, on November the 12th, DCS received a report regarding the younger brother received medical treatment. The report, it was neglect from the parents regarding the sibling. The sibling had untreated rashes all over the body, had severe wheezing, and during the assessment found that the parents were on meth, DV, and facing eviction from their home.
Okay, so we're having some issues right now.
Yes.
Going forward. Besides that, is there any other motion that you're aware of today?
Yes, to suspend visitation with
With the mother,
with the child.
with the child
Yeah.
and the parents?
Yes,
Okay, and that's from CASA, who's put that.
yes,
You support that motion?
I do support it.
Why do you support it?
Rebecca has a lot of trauma from witnessing her parents using meth. And also the parents involved in DV and then being homeless.
Are you seeing that having a negative impact on the child?
Yes, the child has just a lot of trauma.
Are
in
the,
the home.
are the visits traumatic for the child?
Yes, very.
How so?
When the child, before the visits, the child's just sick, does not want to go and cries. And after the visit, you see a lot of behavioral issues after the visits also.
So as of right now, visits do not seem to be helping the child or healing the family or any sense like that.
No, it really disrupts her whole mental health and she feels insane.
So if the court does grant this motion, what would you like to see the parents do in order to get this back to visits?
I would like the parents to address their sobriety, their mental health. I feel that Rebecca needs to have intense trauma therapy.
Okay, so screens, clean screens for a while, some therapy, all of that would make you feel comfortable asking for
Yes.
visits to be reinstated.
Definitely clean screens.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell the court today about this family, this case?
No, that would be all.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you.
So now, is Rebecca still placed with her parents?
No,
How long has she now been with her parents?
since November the 12th.
And so,
Well, I'm sorry. December the 20th.
and has she had any contact with her parents since then?
She's had visits,
How many?
since removal.
Yes. So, could you describe Rebecca acting out during these times?
Yes.
How do we know that's not related to the trauma of, say, being removed from her parents?
Rebecca stressed that she does not want to visit her parents and that she is traumatized when she is visiting her parents.
Have you discussed any possibilities of therapeutic visits or things like that where a therapist is involved as opposed to stopping the visits altogether?
Yeah, there are therapeutic visits and still it's not getting any better because of the amount of trauma that she had.
Well, keeping in mind, this hasn't been that long since the child was removed, right?
Correct.
So it can take time for therapy to make progress and for things to improve rather than just giving up on it, right?
Yeah, I think the parents are not appropriate during the visits. And the parents are refusing drug screens.
So the parents have reviewed drug screens at the visit?
Yes, throughout the case.
Okay. What kind of inappropriate behavior are they showing at these visits?
Crying, very angry. She says she does not want to go.
Be clear, I'm talking about the parents.
Oh, that the parents?
Yeah, because you've allegedly been acting inappropriately,
Oh,
and I'd like
yes.
to hear more about it.
Okay, so during the visits, that the parents, will tell her to lie, say that she wants to visit. The parents will say, that didn't happen, you didn't see me fight, just talking about the case, which is not appropriate to be talking about the case. The parents are on the phones all the time. They're not really engaging with her during the visits, and the service provider, the therapist is trying to get the parents to engage, and they're just, it's like there's not a bond between the child and the parents.
So are the younger siblings there with the parents?
No.
Right.
Kinship.
Can you talk about some of the things the parents have done to comply with the dispositional order
They are not compliant.
at all?
I mean, they do attend visit, but it's not appropriate.
Have you been to the homes recently?
No, they're homeless.
Now, I noticed you said they were facing eviction in your motion.
Yes, well, during the assessment, they were facing eviction and they just left the home.
Have you talked to them about where they're living?
They're just staying from one place to another. They do not have stable housing.
So are we talking friends and acquaintances or hotels or what kind of living situation?
Just different friends, just kind of staying here and staying in another place.
Have you talked to them about how they can resolve that or fix that problem?
Yes, they do not seem motivated. They're fine from going to one place to another.
Have they picked up any criminal charges in regard to the behavior they were describing?
I think there's one pending because the sibling, we are thinking that the rashes on his body is due to meth rashes. So that's still being investigated.
But not charged and it's not been substantiated as molested, right?
Correct.
Don't you think that that investigation should be completed before we take further action against the parent?
I mean, this is a criminal case, but I'm just looking at it for the child. So that would be a different matter.
Don't have any questions on this.
Thank you, Mr. Lord. Mr. Legion, follow up.
Very briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Fro, visitation, is that your motion?
No, it is not.
Okay, so when you're talking about supporting it, you're supporting CASA's motion that the department did not make it.
That's correct.
And if this was granted, would you want this suspension to be permanent?
Not permanent at this time. I think the parents, they have a lot to work on, and so does Rebecca. She has a lot of trauma to deal with, and hopefully we'll get to that place where the parents are clean, doing their services. There's assessments they need to do. And then also with Rebecca, and then hopefully we can get to that place.
So if the court does grant this motion, the goal is to do whatever we can to get visitations back on, the reunification back on schedule.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Additional?
No, no.
Well, that's, let's have a few, if that's okay. Is this Rebecca's first time being removed from her parents?
No.
Do you feel like the prior removals play a factor in why it is recommended that visits be suspended?
Yes.
Have the parents received services for substance abuse treatment in their prior cases?
Yes.
Nothing further. Thank you. Any other questions based on those questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, were there additional witnesses that you wanted to present for the review?
Not from the department, Judge.
Okay, were there any witnesses that you wish to present in response to the review period itself, or just in response to the motion by council?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to comment.
You may, evidence one.
Let me just vote up for 1 second. Now, we're not gonna talk about any criminal charges that you have pending. Because I don't want you to say anything on record that would incriminate yourself. We're not gonna talk about those. We have to do about those things. Tell them that on advice of counsel, you're not gonna answer them, okay? Like to call Jessica Smith,
Okay, you may.
So, Ms. Smith, I understand the case manager talk about some of the lack of involvement in this case. Can you illustrate to the court what you believe you've done to comply with the disposition on the book?
Well, I attend visits. As far as inappropriateness at the visits, I don't understand what that would be about. We'll get on our phone and, Rebecca will be looking at videos together as a way to spend time with her. That's what she likes to do, so that's what we do. Drug screens. If I'm not able to screen within an hour of them calling me, then that's like a missed screen, that they call that a positive screen. Not every drug screen that I've missed is positive. As far as the DV goes, Jeremy and I argue, we fight, but it's not like we're trying to kill each other. I don't think that there's an issue with needing domestic violence classes or whatever. My parents fought a lot worse than Jeremy and I ever did, and the kids weren't really even witness to it. They would just go in their bedrooms when we would argue. I don't think it was that.
So you're saying that the children were not present in the room when you were having an argument with the children?
No, they would always just kind of go in their bedroom and shut the door.
Was there any physical violence when the two of you in the presence of the children in the room?
No,
There's been allegations that the child or children have observed drug use in the home. Do you refute that?
they've not observed drug use on our phone. No, they've not been witness to that.
And now, have you been engaged in any therapy or services that the court should know about?
I made a phone call for a therapist through family time, so I have an appointment next week to go into therapy for me.
So you're making steps in progress towards that.
Yes,
And how long ago was that referral put in?
I don't know.
Did they talk to you about your behavior during the visit?
Well, visits are awkward. They're supervised, so you have a stranger that's staring at you and listening and watching you do everything, so it's weird, it's awkward. I mean, I don't even know who the visit supervisor is, I don't even like the visit supervisor. I could see that Rebecca may not want to come to visits because it's just awkward. And right now Rebecca is just really mad at me. She's upset with me, so she's probably saying that she doesn't want to visit because she's angry with me. But that's not a reason to take my visits away. That's not a reason to take my time away with her. She's my daughter. We need time to make things better. We need time to heal.
Do you believe the visits are helping that happen?
Yes, she needs to be with me.
So if the court voted down the notion to suspend the visit, you feel that would have a detrimental impact on your relationship with Rebecca?
Yes, 100%. I do.
What other things do you think that DCS could be doing to help foster a better relationship between you and Rebecca?
Well, taking time away from us would not benefit in any way. More time would be beneficial, I think.
So are you aware of anything that Jeremy himself is doing in order to comply with this position of the group?
Well, he's attending visits also. And he's got a therapist.
But you're engaging in therapy as well, you know.
Yes.
You've also heard him talk about you might be homeless at this time. What can you tell us about his housing situation?
Well, we're staying with friends, because we have somewhere to live. We're living with friends right now. It's always a kind of place.
So what are you doing to consider another place?
Well, we're just trying to find an apartment together,
Just to save enough money?
trying to.
And how long do you think it's gonna take before you have your, a place of your own?
Maybe a month or two at most.
Where are you staying now? Is there any space for the children to be?
No, really not the space for them right now. They would be, I mean, they would have cots on the floor. It's not like they would have nowhere to sleep.
Are there any other children? in the house?
Yep.
Did you ever talk to me about the people that live around and whether it's okay for the children to be around?
Yeah.
How do you feel about the kinship placement that there is?
I'm okay with the kitchen placement.
Do you feel that that's a good place for you to have visits instead of the supervised setting somewhere else?
Yeah, that would be great. It would be a more natural setting.
So you ask the court to consider that as part of the range of outcomes here instead of suspending the visits altogether.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Are there any other alternatives that you can think of that you feel like the court should know about?
You know, other than just not taking time away from us with our children.
Don't think that another question back there.
Thank you, Mr. Lord. Were there any questions from the department?
Yes, Your Honor, just, Ms. Smith, you said that you were having, with the dispositional order, some issues with the drug screens. Is that correct?
Yes,
You said that, you don't think that if you miss a drug screen within an hour, that's really fair for it to be considered a positive screen.
right.
Now, do you understand that's a dispositional order, correct? That's something that the court has found. And even with that, you disagree.
It's just hard to do and every single time. It's hard to get that accomplished.
So it's difficult and therefore you don't really think it's too important.
I think it's
I'm
important.
gonna object to that question, Your Honor, and it's referring what my client may or may not be thinking as opposed to letting her speak for herself.
I'm going to, sustain the objection. Allow Mr. Laser to rephrase. He wants to carry on that line.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you have any concern about missing drug screens?
Yes, I don't want to miss them. I know it's important. And I try to get my drug screens done when I can.
Are you willing to work with the department to try to maybe have better attendance on those drug screens?
Yes.
Now, I also wanted to briefly talk about the visits that you mentioned. You, in your view, really, all of this is an overreaction and really because of the visit supervisor, is that an accurate statement of your view?
I think Rebecca is really angry with me right now. I think she's mad at me. I think what she is displaying as far as not wanting to come to visits is she's just mad at me.
Do you think there's a valid reason for being upset with you?
I do, but I don't think taking time away from us is going to fix that. I think it's going to make it worse. We need our time together.
Do you think there's anything that you have done that's made these visits uncomfortable for her?
That's made the visits uncomfortable? No.
Yes. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. Any additional?
No, Your Honor,
All right, were there additional witnesses?
don't believe so.
All right, I'd like to hear the motion. I think that you were probably ready to move forward with that.
Yes, Your Honor. If Costa may ask a few questions of Ms. Smith, I guess going into that, and then Costa has two witnesses to call.
Very good.
Jessica? This is Rebecca's third removal, is that correct?
Yes.
So really, in the last 5 years, she spent more time away from you than with you, is that correct?
I'm gonna object to that question. I don't see how it bears on the present motion before the court in terms of we're looking at this particular point in time. And these are the factors that are most relevant to whether the business continues or not what happened 5 years ago.
I'm gonna allow the witness to answer all of the objection.
What was the question? Isn't it true that Rebecca in the last 5 years has spent more time away from you than with you?
Well, we were always visiting. I was always in contact with her throughout the times that she wasn't living with me.
But she didn't call your home her home. Right. And the placement that she's with now is where she has been with all of her removals, is that correct?
Yes.
So do you understand why she would be uncomfortable continuing with visits at this time?
I don't think she's uncomfortable. I think she's mad at me.
Do you understand why she would be mad at you?
Yes.
Would it have anything to do with the fact that she's been removed yet again from your home?
It might have something to do with that, yes.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Were there any questions based on those questions?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
No.
All right, you may call the witnesses that you have. You may call your first witness. Thank you.
Tatum Nieto.
You've already been sworn.
Ms. Nieto, can you tell us a little bit about the visit? Well, first let the courts know what your role is in this case.
I'm the visitation supervisor for Rebecca and Miss Smith.
And can you tell us a little bit about how the visits are going?
They usually start off okay, and then they get more intense towards the end. Rebecca and Miss Smith tend to bicker quite a bit during their visitations towards the end. And Rebecca will often ask to leave early, or Miss Smith will end her visits early, due to those frustrations at the end.
Has there been any issue with confirmation of visits or attendance of visits?
About 3 weeks ago, Miss Smith started to miss visits more regularly. She would confirm for her visits when we would get there, then she would not arrive. And then I would get text messages several hours later saying that she tested positive for COVID and fell asleep, or that her car had broken down and that she couldn't find her phone to let me know that she couldn't make it.
And how does Rebecca react to this?
Rebecca was very angry. I believe when that happened, on those two incidences, she'd say things like, she's just getting high, I know she's not sober, and said that she doesn't want to see her anyway.
How long have you been a visit supervisor?
6 years.
So this isn't your first experience dealing with children resistant to going to visits?
No.
Would you support a motion to suspend visits at this time?
Yes.
We have nothing further.
Thank you. Were there additional questions? This witness.
Yeah. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
During the visits, did you notice any kind of inappropriate conversations that mother had with child?
Yes.
What were those conversations?
It seems like mom was during the visits would start asking Rebecca, why did you tell Laura that you saw me and your dad fight when you know that never happened? And would start trying to like convince her that she was lying and causing more problems in the case, and that just saying that you're making it more difficult. They're saying that we're not doing, like, our visits are bad because you wanna argue with me. You can't come back home until you start acting right, and your lies are not helping things. There's just a lot of redirection that has to happen, during visits, cause, I've noticed, like, she'll try to, like, whisper at her, like, get her alone, to, like, try to avoid, supervision.
When you say she, you mean mother
Oh,
to the
yes,
child?
yes, Mrs. Smith to Rebecca.
Why is that so concerning to you?
Because the visits are already difficult for Rebecca. Convincing her to go it takes some convincing to get her in the car to come to a visit. In the last week, she just like flat out refuses to come. And she says it's because her mom keeps trying to, tell her what to do and tell her to lie and blame the case on her.
What would you like to see mother do in order for visitations to be better?
I think, maybe some therapy to kind of see how these behaviors could be affecting Rebecca, see if she can take some accountability for that. I also think it wouldn't be a bad idea for her to do some sobriety and some parenting classes.
Is there anything else you'd like to support?
No,
Thank you, no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Laser, Mr. George.
So you spoke of a couple of incidences where my client was unable to make the visit. Do you have any reason to believe that she did not have coverage?
she never sent me a picture of a test or a doctor's note or anything to confirm it.
So did you ask her to provide that?
Yes,
And if she did in fact have coverage, should she be coming to a visit?
no,
So that would be a reasonable response, even if she could not provide you that information, to take precaution and not give the child coverage, right? Also, speaking of the car, transportation, do you have any reason to believe that that didn't?
no,
Is it common for those who are homeless or otherwise struggling to have issues with transportation?
yes.
And has anyone talked to my client about how they can help her with transportation in case that happens again?
I have offered to drive Miss Smith to the visitations, like after I pick up Rebecca, I've offered to pick her up and she refuses.
Has she been made aware of that there are options available to her if she is unable to get her own transportation?
Yes,
Now, you described some behavior during the visit in terms of, whispering to Rebecca and that kind of thing. And, are you able to hear what they're whispering about?
not all the time, but Rebecca will tell me about it later if I can't hear everything, but sometimes it is just an out loud discussion and I can hear those things.
And so, is it possible that they could be talking about things that are appropriate to be talking about, even though they're whispering?
Perhaps,
So now, it's not easy for a parent to feel like they need to be supervised with their own child every time they see them.
I'm sorry,
It's not easy for a parent to feel like they have to be supervised during every visit with their child, right?
no,
So is it common for parents to be frustrated about that or to otherwise have a hard time dealing with that?
yeah,
And likewise, it's uncomfortable sometimes for the children involved in that, right? To have somebody kind of hovering over the interactions with their parent, right?
it could, yeah.
So have you explored any options where the visit might be in a more comfortable setting, such as at the kinship placement or somewhere else?
Placement has requested the visits not take place at her home. We've tried going out in the community, but Ms. Smith complains that with the weather, that she would prefer to have them at the office and they're closer to where she's studying.
How old is Rebecca now?
13.
Is it fair to say that mothers and daughters around that time, it's not unusual for them to have some conflict?
It's not unusual.
How were you able to distinguish that in this scenario compared to it being directly because of my client's alleged behavior?
A lot of the time, visit will start out okay. It's when their conversations start shifting about blame being placed on Rebecca, when she starts feeling blamed for their case and for things not going well. Her mom tells her it makes it harder. She's making visits harder. And then that's kind of when Rebecca starts shutting down. And asking to leave, or sometimes Ms. Smith gets very worked up and then she will just leave. So there's really no resolution in their arguments, and there's no attempt at making resolutions. They just get aggravated and leave.
Has Rebecca talked to you at all about kinship placement interactions with her?
Yeah, Rebecca has been placed with them. This is her 3rd time, so she's very comfortable in the home. I've never observed any, bad interactions with them. Sometimes if Rebecca's very worked up, she'll ask to call her placement on the way back to help calm her down.
How does placement use my client?
I don't know. They haven't expressed that to me.
But they have expressed that they don't want visits taking place in their home despite being family, right?
They just feel that to preserve the peace between the family, that it's probably best that there be a visitation supervisor and that they not take place at the home, just to protect Rebecca's safe space.
No further questions, sir.
Thank you. Any additional questions or additional witnesses that you wish to present?
CASA has an additional witness, but no other questions.
Okay, thank you. You may call your next.
Christine Benitos. Christine, could you tell the court what your role is in this case?
I am Rebecca's therapist, and I have been since approximately 2022.
So you've been involved with her prior removals.
Yes.
How was Rebecca?
Rebecca is doing very well. She's a good student. She enjoys going to school. She often has behaviors that warrant some extra emphasis at school to help her with her schoolwork. She is always very open and communicative in our sessions, so.
And has Rebecca received any diagnoses from clinical assessments?
I diagnosed Rebecca with post-traumatic stress disorder from what she's been through.
When you say what she's been through, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Rebecca has had significant trauma in her home, and we have worked through some patterns and discussed through talk therapy and cognitive behavior therapy. And we have tried to kind of alleviate some of the emotions and some of the triggers that she has from her past removals.
So we're here today for a motion to suspend parenting time, suspend visitation. Are you in support of that motion?
Yes, I am.
And can you explain why?
I believe in Rebecca's case, she is having specific triggers when she is at visits. It is leaving her with some behaviors that have been reported by kinship placement, by the school. And I feel at this time that it would be beneficial for Rebecca to not participate in the visits.
Would you have recommendations for the parents on what they can do to make those visits emotionally safe again?
My recommendation would be that the parents would receive therapeutic services themselves, as Rebecca does, and then in the future, we could look at doing some therapeutic sessions again in the future.
Nothing further from CASA.
Thank you. Mr. Leach.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's been some testimony today about the relationship between 13-year-old daughters. You said you've known the child for quite a while. Do you get the sense that this is just a 13-year-old being a 13-year-old, or is there anything else that you've kind of seen during your time with her?
I do not get the impression that it is a 13-year-old being a 13-year-old. I believe that, given my history with Rebecca, I can confidently say that this is from her past trauma.
And that's based on your medical
Yes.
training and experience.
Yes.
Thank you, no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Louisa. Mr. Lawrence.
Can you, talk about alternative to suspending visitation? What would be some other possibilities that the court could consider that would be beneficial to all the parties?
At this time, I do not see an alternative to the visits. I believe that the visits don't have to be suspended long-term, but I do not see that there's a way to conduct these visits that's beneficial to the child at this time.
Even if you're involved or another therapist is involved in helping these visits play.
Correct.
Why not?
The triggers that she's experiencing when she's on these visits are things that she needs to work on, Rebecca needs to work on independently without experiencing some of those traumatic emotions, and we need to learn how to deal with that without the visits at this time.
Has Rebecca made progress in her therapy?
She has made progress in her therapy, particularly at a time when she was removed from the home. Kinship was very good about bringing her to her visits. She has had some lapse in her sessions. When she's been placed back in the home, it's been sporadic. So we've kind of started over, in essence, a little bit this time.
I think that's all the questions we have for this witness, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Any additional?
No, you're right.
All right, thank you. Let's put that down. Was there anything else that we would like to present at this time?
No, you're
Okay, all right. Well, at this time, I'm going to show that the evidence is commenced and concluded as part of the review hearing in this case, and in support and in response to this motion to suspend the parenting time. I would say that we kind of find ourselves all together. Everyone has great concern for Rebecca and moving forward with being reunited with her parents. I heard you, Jessica, loud and clear with regards to things that you are thinking and feeling. And there's probably definitely some truth to what you say in terms of the anger that Rebecca is experiencing. I'm sure that that is there. But I would take heed to what the case manager and what her CASA and what her therapist and visit supervisor are also saying, which is there are some identifiable reactions and behaviors in her that are coming out of these visits that are difficult for her to move forward. And so I don't want to make light of this by just ignoring this and just chalking it up to a 13-year-old's adolescent manners in response to her mom or her dad, okay? So I say that because I think that you have an awareness of to some degree of that, but I think there's some deeper concerns here that I would like you to focus on and work in therapy on. And really dig deeper than you ever have before. We're at the third removal. We know she's safe. You're working on some stabilizing pieces, right? You're going to work on making sure that you're addressing any substance use that you're facing. I want you to continue to do that in a greater way, and we will offer the support that we can to help you do that. But I think in being able to really make visits productive and healthy and safe, for Rebecca, we're going to have to step forward to acknowledge some of these other pieces that have been affecting her behaviors. Okay, and she can't do it without you. So she really does need you to dig in deep, and follow the therapist and what they're recommending to do. Okay, so I'm gonna order, that the, motion for the suspension, it's temporary, but I'm going to grant it. Not because I take a 13-year-old's viewpoint, because she's not 14. The law's not gonna say she gets to dictate. But overall, we look at the full picture, it's in her best interest to do so. And do it in a temporary fashion, set this for a review hearing, so that we can see how we are progressing. Are there questions about the order of the court today?
No, you are.
Your Honor, we would just request that a review be set sooner than the normal timelines so that we can keep on top of this issue and make sure that we don't have this continuing on any longer than necessary.
Do you think that, and we didn't ask this question in the therapy, but I know the time that she's been in therapy so far, and it's still progressing. Do you think 90 days would be a reasonable amount of time for that?
I think that would be appropriate.
We are okay with that.
We'll set the review hearing in 90 days, and then we'll see where we're at that time. Okay? Okay. Any other questions?
No, you are.
Okay. How about from the audience? Any questions? Go ahead.
I noticed that Mr. Smith is not present. Are there any repercussions for dad not showing up? I see that a lot.
Because of domestic violence, their hearings are bifurcated.
Oh, okay.
So not necessarily, but that's a good question, and I think it would be a concern if that domestic violence piece wasn't present. Impossible, go ahead.
Was he a part of the visitations each time, or he's not, he doesn't have visitations when she has visitation?
He would normally have separate visitations, wouldn't
He would have separate,
And so this does not affect his visitation with Rebecca?
he's
just
gonna
her.
have his own hearing, because it's the motion
Right.
for both.
Right,
but they might be kind of twinning on this.
right.
Who else? Yes. Go.
Does a child ever testify?
What's their 14?
So it is not something that we would typically do. Okay, and because of their tender nature, their age and their inability to have the judgment, it's not, they have to be able to tell the truth versus a lie, but if it is going to affect their well-being, it is highly discouraged to do that. I'm trying to think in a situation, Mr. Leeser, that the department would ever ask for the child to testify.
Now, I had one time in a hearing where we had a 17-year-old about to turn 18.
Mhm.
And we thought it might be appropriate, and I actually had a practice question, kind of talking, getting her sense. And she was very parentified, she was very, mature for her age, and about 3 questions in, she was crying into practice, right? So it was like, I don't think, in general, it was ever a good time to do something.
I agree. Does more harm than good. Yes.
First of all, I thought you did a really good job on the defense. That's tough, but
Yeah.
it seems like the parents just kind of like. You did a good job acting that, but it seems like to me, that I've never been to an actual case yet. Just sworn in, that's it, but it seems like the parents don't really care, or maybe they don't want to be a part of that child's life. Does that ever happen? Like, not really advocating to trying to make a change, it's like, well, what happens then? What if they don't want
You wanna take that?
to have visitation rights?
I think a lot of parents are, when you're struggling with substance use disorder or mental illness, they're not always thinking rational, and, think that it's like a form of denial, that, it's hard for them to look at themselves and blame themselves. They don't, it's a natural thing to feel very defensive and to feel like, because I think there are times where the parents generally feel like you know, DCS isn't doing what they said they would do, you know, and so you get this sort of, well, they're holding me accountable. They need to hold themselves accountable. They need to do the things they said they would do. And there's an element of that going on. And they don't feel, a lot of people don't feel like that get talked about very much. And that's something we try to bring out from a defensive standpoint. What else could we be doing? How can we look at this? And to point out alternatives that, you know, give the judge something maybe in the middle where we can like, you know, and, you know, a lot of the time that we're on the defense side, I feel like we're not so much defending the parent or the actions or like so much as it's a process working the way it needs to. What else can we do to better carry this out and to make sure that every possible thing considered instead of just kind of moving in one direction the whole way through. So.
That makes sense. And I also feel like if they were using drugs, you're gonna have frizzled brain, I'm trying to think, matter in there. So it's not always gonna be how we think they should be acting on stage or on the, I'm need to work on my terms. But this is a little stage, right? But yeah, I suppose I gotta look from that side too. So, thank you.
Yeah, you know, I would add, only thing I would add to that is that, you know, when you see people, we're all human beings, these parents that are failing, right? They are people first. And
Yeah.
so what do we need to make good decisions in our life? No substances for sure, but at the very basic, if we have a stable home, you know, stable financial, you know, means to take care of ourselves, transportation, I mean, beyond any trauma that they might have endured, and substance use that would have blocked anything. To get to that executive thinking level, to be able to connect to our emotions, we need those basic things. And so when you see these parents who don't have them, I mean, the expectation that they are going to be ever operating at that level is just, I mean, it's kind of like a fraud. It's like, I mean, who's thinking that, right? It's really not possible.
Yeah.
And so getting them to that place to where they have those basic, you know, we're on Maslow's hierarchy, right? We want to get to that ability to think. So, you know, it's hard to, like, when I'm addressing a parent who is not there, I can't go too deep in the weeds to what I need done, because they're not going to receive that information. They're not going to be able to make that order stick or understand what I'm even saying to them fully. So it's like a kind of a growing process.
Makes sense.
So I think that that's really important in your role as advocates to really understand you're advocating for that child, because that's what you're doing. But these parents are also human beings who have struggled too, and appreciating that full picture is really, really needed here.
At the end of the day, we want the child to be with the parent. We want the children to get better because we can't have all these people in foster homes and whatnot.
That's right.
Right.
That's so true. Other questions? Yes.
I just wanted, like you were saying, it does seem like mom, when visiting with the child, was so focused on blaming DCS, and I think that's the inappropriate conversations that were taking place is when she was trying to create an ally in her child. And that seemed like her main goal.
And I'll just say, even from DCS's side, which, you know, we're the bad guys on from parents' point of view type of. I think it is important to realize, as everyone else has said, they do care, and I think a lot of times this is what they know. You know, it's when you have never had a situation where we would consider normal, it is normal. And it's also, I've had parents who really are like, why did you say this thing? This is a normal thing that parents do. This is what I lived through. Why are you trying to get me in trouble? And to us, we're like, well, that isn't appropriate. Like, it just seems like we're judging it.
One of the things I say to parents sometimes is, sometimes DCS is the best thing that happened to you. Because they have resources available that you didn't even know you needed, and they can help you. And I told a mom recently, don't be in a rush to close this case, because they can get a lot of help for you. So,
That's a good reframing. of that. And it puts them in a position to be working as a partner, to be receiving the things that they haven't had. I mean, it really does change, that starts to change that thinking.
And that is one question I typically ask my client when we're getting ready to make a decision about whether to admit that the child is in need of services. My first question I don't usually start out with, is it true what they're saying? You know, I just kind of skip that part at first because I always just go back to the bottom line is, could you use some help with what's going on in your life? Can you use more resources to help your family get to a better place? And if the answer to that is yes, then to me, that tells me that they're receptive to receiving that help. And we can then start talking about what the factual basis might look like for an admission, or, you know, sometimes they just take issue with one of the 10 things that's alleged. So we try to get focused on, well, what do you feel comfortable saying in order to get this to the next stage, to get that help sooner rather than later. But on the other hand, they tell me, no, I got this, I'm in therapy, I got, you know, and they started listing off all the reasons why they don't really need it. Then that's where we started to sort of shift the focus to the coercive intervention of the court is not needed. And they can do it on their own. And that's kind of usually one of the first real questions that I have with my clients.
I was wondering, is there ever a situation where the parent is, which the parent in this case is not being consistent with, you know, attending therapy or maybe some of the court mandated services, they're failing screenings, but if the variable of their relationship with the child was different, so in this situation, Rebecca was obviously angry and distressed by the meetings, but if she wasn't, but they were still not doing anything outside of that, would you suggest as a CASA in that situation that you would still recommend to restrict visitation rights?
So when a CASA is making their report to the court, it is important that we report the child's wishes, and then we also report what we feel like is in their best interest. And sometimes that doesn't align. Sometimes we have children who also grew up in this household and this is all they know, and they don't know that it's dysfunctional or harmful or that they're not safe. So we might have a child saying, like, that's been removed, I just want to go home. I don't need to be in this foster home. Just let me go home. Everything was fine. Or I can take care of my mom better. I know how to make her stay sober, all of those things. We're not going to recommend that the child stay in that situation, but we will let the judge know child wants to go home. However, in order for us to be comfortable for the child to go home, we want to see sobriety, stability, you know, and all of those factors. So we would still make the motion even if the child feels like their relationship is fine or they don't need to have those interventions, because the best interest advocacy is what our role is, but we owe it to the child to also let the court know what they feel.
I would say on the DCS side too, we look at visits not as things you get if you play ball, right? It's something for the kids. And it's for the relationship. And we've had cases where parents are not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, but visits are good. And the fear is that if you stop those visits, it's going to be harmful for the child. I can see a situation where there is an argument to be made of, is the visit harmful because parents are having some behaviors, but the kid is getting so much out of it? That is an interesting question. And I can see the disagreement of coming from different sides too, but DCSS court, we do not look at visits again as a reward. It is something that's keeping this relationship. And that means that there's some hard questions because we'll go, they're not doing anything, but we think it will be worse if we just cut off.
And it's also the parent's constitutional right to visit their children. So in order for us to be able to suspend that, we would have to have a very good argument for why it's in that child's best interest, and not just because the parents aren't doing what they're under dispositional order to do. That's not enough just to suspend visits. That's the, go ahead.
I just would add to that, I'm an adoptee myself. My kids are also adopted. And I think that if there's a way to safely have a biological family connection, I feel like that's really important. You know, my children still see
their biological mother who she didn't, I mean, obviously, she didn't do everything that she needed to do to bring you to life, right? But she is clean now and she is safer, maybe not completely safe, but safer. And I do feel like it is important for a child to have that biological connection. I grew up without one. I didn't have any, and it creates a lot of questions about yourself. It creates a lot of insecurity. Where do I come from? Why am I like this? Why do I think this way? And so I think, like, you know, even though we can sometimes be hesitant of like, well, this parent isn't going to therapy, or they're not doing this or that, you know, not totally unsafe behavior, but at the same time, they're not doing exactly what they need to do. It is still important to try to foster some form of relationship as safe as you can make it, when you can do that.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I think we've all signed up for roles that require us to really exercise our skills and empathy, you know, and to be able to put ourselves into the shoes of others. And to connect to those things, those experiences in our own lives that allow us to see others more fully and completely. And that's not easy, you know, sympathy falls short. You know, they'll say, you know, just be sympathetic until you can be empathetic, but I'm thinking, oh gosh, we got to get to empathy as to get to the best result, right? We've got to get there. So I really appreciate your comment. Really good.
We have time for one more.
I'm curious because she was very passive with the response. It was a very calm court session. I was really hoping at the end that she would throw her book and say, something to end it, but I wondered,
I had plans.
is it normal for the parent to be, okay, fine.
Oh, no.
Okay, that's what I would feel like, but I know it was you're just taking away for 90 days their visitation. You're not saying your child has been taken away from you, you'll never see her again, you know, that kind of thing. I realized that,
So
you know,
one
that
of
it
the
was,
things I try to do to diffuse that is to make sure they understand before I give any ruling that I've heard them.
Mhm.
And that I have valued and taken into account their position and give it its due, right? So I think that's how I led with her. And I typically do that because, I mean, that's one of the skills, just controlling and managing the courtroom environment. Because tensions get high, and people are hurt when they come before you. And so I think acknowledging that, and then also framing what happened as not an attack, but as, well, if we're listening to each other, we're hearing a lot of people that are saying that Rebecca's perspective, there's something to it, you know, and so, you know, helping them appreciate that. They don't always, you know, they're still mad usually. But at least it has been put before them in a way that, unless you have somebody that's got some real mental deficits, they can accept, you know, at that moment, and not act out. At least that's been my experience. I've been on the bench for 17 years, going on 17 years, and I've never issued an order of contempt, a direct contempt order for somebody acting out. And I think it's attributed to just an approach, in dealing with hard situations. So, I mean, we can aggravate it, or we can help make people more receptive to it, even when it's hard.
It seemed that Dawn portrayed someone who went in being careful, because you can see her at times hesitate, trying to frame things in a way that weren't heated or, you know.
but she is playing with her full faculties as the actor.
Yeah.
The mother is not, you know, if she were sincerely the mother that's higher.
I actually thought she was gonna cry once.
I know, I did, yeah, she had several times that I thought she was
Well,
tearing up.
typically did that. We might,
Yeah.
animated.
Yeah.
But Judge changed that because I had a whole, there was going to be a meltdown, but you changed that for me. Especially, and the 90 days did too. So I didn't have, I mean, if I'm really truly in Jessica's shoes, I'm ashamed of myself. There's a lot of shame that comes with addiction and just the DCS process. So I'm on the defensive And as far as visits go and me trying to tell Rebecca, tell them this or whatever, I'm grasping at whatever I can control at that moment. And it's always worked before for me to tell my child, don't tell DCS this or whatever. So, I mean, there's all sorts of emotions coming everywhere, but the way you presented your ruling was phenomenal. That helped a lot.
I think we can also take what Judge Granger said is how she presents to the parents when she's giving those difficult conversations in the courtroom, take it to a CFTM. Because we have to give some really difficult content to parents in that CFTM. Sometimes we're the only one at the table that's going at that parent to say, no, you're not compliant, you're not doing. So if you can frame it, because a lot of times our presence in that CFTM agitates the parents. So if you can take what she said and how she presented that of like, I hear you, I see that you're working on this, I see that you love, I see that you care, but this is what I need, and we're gonna get there. I think that it will help maybe make some of those meetings more productive.
Yeah, it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be perfect, but it does help ease some of the stress. It will.
Are we gonna do a mock screaming in the hallway?
All together.
You all guys, you were amazing.
So we're gonna stop, here, pause that